Hi everyone, welcome back to SOP Podcast. Today we are privileged to host one of my good friends. He's a communication expert and above all, he has practiced communications and PR for such a long period of time. I'm going to take this opportunity to welcome Alex. Alex, welcome to SOP Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Please tell us your name and what you do.
So, yes, my name is Alex Owiti. I'm a communication expert. I've been around for the last 17 years. This is my 17th year in communication.
How does it feel?
It feels progressive. Let me say progressive because we've seen a lot of trends. We've seen a lot of changes that have been happening in the communication industry. We've seen convergence of media, which of course has influenced how we practice PR. We've seen adoption of new technology, and I would say the growth of channels. We've seen the changes of audiences. Today we are talking about Gen Zs and millennials. we were as millennials, we were enjoying ourselves in that band. Yeah. But now we have Gen Zs, then we have Gen Alphas. Yeah. So the audience keep on changing. Yeah. And the audience also dictate how we communicate to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to ask you now that you've talked about your 17 years of experience. Yes. Or your 17 years in communication.
Yes.
What is something you could do 5 years ago that you can't do now?
That I can't do now? I think I've been a fitness enthusiast.
Yeah.
I think things have changed in my life, physiologically. I don't think I can pull a 100 a 100 like Omanyala. I need to train more, to get back to fitness. Actually, on 26th of this month, I'll be turning 40 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
You look so young.
I'll be turning 40 years. So I'm like, maybe I need to go back to my, to my fitness level so that I can chase my kids. The way I used to be in my 20s, Yeah. That has actually changed.
But people say life begins at 40.
Yes, people say...
is it 40 or 50?
40?
Yeah.
Life begins at 40, but that means, restarting, repurposing, redirecting yourself.
Yeah.
It's not about the fancy things that people always think about that when you turn 40, now you're enjoying life. No, you should be out there blowing your savings and everything that you've ever had. But I think it is usually a wake-up call. Yeah. When people say life starts at 40, it's a wake-up call because you're going to live maybe in the next 20 years or 30 years if God allows you. So you have to repurpose your life and make it right.
In Dar es Salaam, if you go to Dar es Salaam, they say unakula bata. There's some places in Dar es Salaam called Mbudia Beach and Mbezi Beach.
Yes.
So if you say life begins at 40,
yes.
For generation like ours, you think that's where you now start chapaning sherehe, a good one.
Yeah, but for some of us, we have to repurpose and look at life. It's also time for you to take stock and audit the last maybe 20 years of your life.
Yeah.
How has that been? They say that you're allowed to make mistakes in your 20s, improve them in your 30s, and make them better in your 40s as you age.
That's a good one.
Yes.
I want to ask you, of course, our topic today is crisis communications.
Yes.
But when did you start loving communication? Let's start from there.
I think I started loving communication when I was in high school because I loved literature, per se. I was not a math guy. So, and I think I disappointed part of my family because a lot of them were in the medical field and some of them were teachers, And my dad personally was a doctor and a psychiatrist at that.
Okay.
So people expected that when I finished high school, I should be a doctor. And I didn't do that. So I decided to do communication, which of course was very alien to a lot of people, but not alien in the sense that we had, I would say there were role models that were coming from our area, because I come from a place called Awasi. Awasi is in Nyando. We
Nyando
have
is in Kisumu County.
Yes.
Okay.
We have communication gurus like Elizabeth Omolo, who was once in the radio station, who, made the radio waves,
Is it Elizabeth
in KB.
Omolo or Obege?
There was Elizabeth Obege, but there's also Elizabeth Omolo,
Okay.
who is the mother to Louis Otieno, the famous Louis Otieno, and
NTV.
the NTV guy that you guys know about.
Yeah.
So those are part of the role models. Then there's Jerry Okungu, who also was a prolific writer, a journalist at that. Also worked for organizations like NEPAD and all that kind of stuff. So, and there's so many people that I came to learn that are coming from my region who are communication experts.
Yeah.
We have Marco Kuta, who used to be a
Why you showing off?
who are busy. I must mention our people from our region,
Why you showing off?
There's Marco Kuta right now sitting at Communication Authority.
Yeah.
We have Michael Omondi, who is a business editor, coming from Nyando. We have so many of them. We have so many guys.
This is going to be about Nyando, and you don't want to get to Nyando. Probably that's where our crisis, our topic gets into. That's where our communication crisis gets into.
Yeah.
Because then, how do you define communication and add on the crisis? You understand?
Yes.
Because people always think when you're communicating, you're okay, but they don't know how to separate the two. So, could you give us a small context about what communication crisis is?
So, communication crisis can be looked at in two perspectives. There is issue management, or issues that arise during a communication crisis. Then you have a crisis itself. So, issues would be small things that are rising as far as probably a brand is concerned, or a business is concerned, for that matter.
Yeah.
So let's say people are complaining about a service or a product. And sometimes it can just be a small issue. Somebody just complaining on X or on Facebook about, I went to this particular platform. Maybe they went and bought something online, and probably what they got was different. We've had those issues with other platforms that we know of in this country, where somebody orders a particular thing.
What you get versus what you order.
Versus what you order.
Yeah.
Those are small issue managers that sometimes come, but sometimes they turn out to be crisis when they're not managed properly. They become, I would say, it's like a storm in a teacup.
Yeah.
So they become grandiose. They become big if you do not solve them. So I just want to break it in a very small way that way, rather than going into the technical or
aspects of it. Yeah.
So when you do not deal with an issue, it becomes a crisis. So sometimes things can be very small, minute things,
Yeah.
and they grow up and they blow up, and we've seen even people complaining on Twitter. It starts with one person just tweeting, I don't like this service, or these people treated me like this. And sometimes they're not even prominent people. They don't even have big followers.
Yeah.
Somebody, I saw there was a story that happened on X, where there was one of the local banks.
Yeah.
Somebody complained about a service. They had 2 followers on X.
Really?
But the way that thing blew up on X, and it became a big issue, where now it was just fire.
Yeah.
And these people could not even contain it.
Yeah.
It was something that surprised many.
So what I'm learning from you is a crisis does not matter the number of followers you have.
No.
If a complaint is not handled, then it can escalate to a crisis.
Of course, it can, and a big one at that.
So then when it's already a crisis, the crisis part, because that's where I'm trying to move my mind around.
Yes.
Once it's a crisis part, what do I do? What do brands do? What's the next thing?
Of course, I like saying that seal your roof on a sunny day.
Okay.
Don't wait for the rain.
Don't wait for El Nino.
Yes, and that is where most brands make their most mistakes.
Yeah.
Because they wait until an issue grows and becomes something that you cannot handle, and it injures your brand to an extent that recovery becomes a problem, And in the digital era, recovering sometimes is a big issue,
Yeah.
because of digital footprint. It's like if I went and Googled a brand, and if it had a crisis recently, I might not, for instance, seek their services or
even
buy
buy
the
from
products.
them. Yeah.
That is how serious it is in the digital era. That if you do not deal with your crisis, if you do not have a plan to seal your roof on a sunny day, it will rain on you. So the reason why I'm saying this is that it is important as a brand, anybody, an individual or a corporate or an organization for that matter, to audit its vulnerabilities.
Oh, wow.
If you do not audit your vulnerabilities, they will come to bite you. And probably you might not be ready to prepare yourself for the crisis. So, for instance, if you're a manufacturer, can you audit your vulnerabilities in terms of every stage of production of the product? Just even like a car. We've seen vehicles being recalled.
Yeah.
We've seen big brands recalling some of their products. But it tells you that why did they release the product into the market before doing a proper product test?
Yeah.
To ensure that they seal those vulnerabilities that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So it is important to audit as an organization where you can be rained on. And that's why you always hear this term, when did the rain start beating us? Yeah, because you did not check your roof, you did not look at where the loopholes, and start sealing them.
Yeah.
So now when the crisis happens, now you start panicking. Yeah, and today imagine you have an audience that is well learned. They are technologically informed, they're techno savvy. They can review your product or service from where they're sitting at the palm of their hands. And they can be able to tell you, probably these are the issues. And sometimes, people can tell you what your vulnerabilities are, and you assume it. And I think the problem sometimes is sitting on a high horse and thinking that whatever you've produced or whatever you have as a service, it is the most formidable thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it cannot be criticized, or it cannot be, people cannot poke holes into it.
I want to jump in there.
Yeah.
Because when it's already raining on you.
Yes.
Your body is wet.
Yes.
There's nowhere for you as a company or a brand to go and hide yourself.
Yes.
How do you get yourself from there? Because now it's happening. Everyone is talking about it.
Yes.
How do you as a brand get yourself back and tell people, hey, it has happened?
I think the most important thing to do is always take a step back and put structures in place on how you want to communicate during crisis. Because what sometimes happens is that people start communicating haphazardly without a structure. So what I mean is that there must be a statement that is going to be released by that company, only by the spokesperson of the company, rather than we have situations whereby everybody is communicating. And sometimes it's important to handle it from an internal perspective. And that's why internal communication comes in when a crisis happens. So that means that your first stakeholders are your employees whenever there's a crisis. And again, your employees could be your first brand ambassadors. If you train them well in how they're going to communicate during a crisis, it might help stop the bushfire. Because sometimes they might be communicating about your crisis, and they do not understand that they are also
lighting up the fire.
Yeah, making the fire to spread faster. Filling it up.
Yeah.
So the first thing is to ensure that you communicate to your staff and tell them we are having a crisis. This is how we're going to go about it. We're going to have a structure. Everything is going to be communicated through the spokesperson, through the official communication platforms for these organizations, so that if it is authentic information that people are sharing, the people should be able to link it back to the official platforms of the organization or the company. Because we are living in an era whereby fake information is on the rise because
so
of
crucial now. It's rising. Yeah.
Disinformation and misinformation.
Yeah.
Are things that arise during a crisis comes.
Okay.
So like right now, we've had a very unfortunate situation where kids have been burnt in a school.
Yeah,
in
very sad.
Kieni.
Yeah.
Very, very sad situation.
Yeah.
In such a manner, we're expecting that the government has its communication plan lined up in the sense that the communication coming from one source, it is authentic.
Okay.
In terms of even the numbers, because now people are panicking.
Yeah.
Parents are panicking. Families are panicking. They don't know what is happening. So one source of information is very important to ensure that we eliminate the issues of disinformation and misinformation.
I want to jump into that because then with schools, now that you've brought in issues with the schools,
Yes.
I know of a friend, her son died
Yes.
in a road accident.
Yes.
And she did not get this information from the school.
Yes.
She got this information from social media.
Yes.
And she was saying she was so disheartened.
Yes.
And she felt uncomfortable.
Yes.
The fact that not even one single teacher from school
Yes.
called,
Yes.
even made things worse for her.
Yes.
So in such a situation, how do you, what advice would you have to schools? Because in most primary and secondary schools, I don't think they have they have communication experts.
Of course, they don't, and sometimes they don't handle those crises also in a proper manner, because at the end of the day, you must first of all empathize with the victims. For instance, if that mother who lost the daughter, right? The son, sorry. Yeah, it means that they should have found a way of getting to invite her to school, and having a counselor, talk to her, inform her what is going on. And then now the school can release a statement, saying that, we've had a very unfortunate incident, of losing this child through this accident. And the investigations are going to be done and ensuring that such an incident does not happen again. Yeah. However, the situation sometimes, they don't do it like that.
Yeah.
So it is important for even schools to have a crisis communication plan, that whenever something happens, how do they communicate? How do they release that information? And even through the Ministry of Education, probably. Because at times, the news moves very fast. Yeah? It's fine. It moves very fast because it's broken on social media. But there must be structures on how to communicate that.
So you mean social media still does not ignore the fact that there should be structures when issues happen, in short? Yeah?
They should, of course, they should. Probably, there's usually an assumption that this issue will take care of itself. Yeah. But we've seen situations whereby issues spreading like bushfire on social media. By the time things are escalating and the public is coming after you, for accountability and all that kind of stuff, is because people feel probably there's no public confidence. And of course, lack of this communication plan or a crisis communication plan is what creates that noise that you see on social media. Yeah. Because there's lack of public confidence on the institution, if it's a public institution, for instance. Even generally in terms of disaster management, I think we've taken things very lightly in terms of how we deal with disaster response. Yeah. But I think right now there's a bill in Parliament, of course, that is going to deal with disaster management. There is also all these organizations, how they come together. I like the way Red Cross went to Kieni and they set up a counseling desk. Yeah. And now they're counseling, parents who are coming. So I think we've learned over time how to handle this communication when crisis happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's talk about public confidence.
Yes.
We have had recent occurrence in our country.
Yes.
The major was the Gen Z protest.
Yes.
Against this finance bill.
Yes.
Which was highly considered that it was going to increase taxes.
Yes.
On so many things.
Yes.
We're not going to discuss finance bill, of course.
Yes.
But the president is on record saying that the finance bill did not have a problem.
Yes.
It was probably how his communications team communicated.
Yes.
What's your thought on that?
I think probably on one side the president could have been right in terms of how the entire issue was handled as far as communication is concerned. And I think government, even under under the 2010 Constitution, it gave us the powers to have public participation on matters that affect Kenyans. So at the first place, and I think that is where we've always lost the opportunity, is how do we engage the public, or how do we call the public to participate on policies that are arising, so that there is no, number one, miscommunication and disinformation, which of course during that period of Gen Z protests, there were a lot of disinformation and misinformation.
Left and center.
Right, left and center, because there was no proper structured platform to communicate what this finance bill was going to do.
Yeah.
And that was a lack of opportunity. And that's why this whole thing became something that we never wanted to see. So I agree with the president that at some point they needed to have structured this in terms of communicating to Kenyans. How is this thing going to affect their lives?
I want us to delve there.
Yeah.
And also discuss the presidential speech.
Yes. Yes.
What?
Yeah.
Because where?
Yeah.
Kenyans will say where?
Yeah.
The presidential speech.
Yes.
Where when youth stormed, or the Gen Z stormed the parliament.
Yes.
Of course, there was so many guns. There was firing. People were killed.
Yes.
Very sad,
Yes.
unfortunate events
Yes.
that could have been controlled
Yes.
earlier if communication
Was properly handled.
right?
Yes. Yes.
But the president comes in later and says, he called them who? He called them criminals.
Yes.
Criminals and what? I'm trying to look for the word, but
Yes.
he did not use those words that you are like, was this even presidential?
I think during crisis, one thing that people need to understand is that as a leader, you must communicate with empathy. Emotional intelligence must always be at the top line when there's a crisis. People must connect with you from an empathy perspective.
Yeah.
And I think when a leader is empathetic of situations that are happening, then the public tends to tone down in terms of their the aggression that they're trying to bring up. And I think I think the last speech that the president had is when he was able to be empathetic with people that we've lost lives and all that kind of stuff. Things that he would have said at the beginning of his first speech during the crisis.
Yeah.
Which, of course, he did not do. And I think that also goes back to his communication team. How did they advise him, and his advisors, people who surround him. A leader must always be empathetic with the situation because he's above everybody at that particular time.
Yeah.
Yeah. People are looking up to him.
His word is low.
Yes. People are looking up to him to provide that leadership, during all situations. Whether the country is doing well or the country is doing badly, people look up to him. So a leader must have empathy when communicating. Emotional intelligence is a critical thing. And if you lose it, then you lose the public. And you lose the public confidence.
I love what you're saying. And I think let's discuss this into even details. There was a presidential interview.
Yes.
That culminated after the press releases and stuff.
Yes.
In one or another, it did not go well with the president. I think for those people who are wondering what we're discussing, you just go and ask for presidential speech, presidential interview with the media station.
Yes.
When the president was asked about the young boy who had 12 bullets.
Yes.
And his answer was like he was not even sure about that.
Yes.
So on your case, also what are some of your thoughts on the presidential interview? Because you also watched it.
I think the president is a busy person, and of course, he has intelligence system in this country, and he has a communication team. In any organization, you need to be briefed as a leader to come into terms with what is happening, so that by the time you're going out there to communicate to the people feel that you're in tandem with what is happening. You know what is going on. But what raised everyone was that it's like even the president probably was not aware about what was going on, and that is why he gave an answer that was a bit half-baked, and it was a very unfortunate answer because a kid was lost.
Yeah.
So one thing as a leader that you must always do during a crisis, make sure that you're properly informed of every touch point of that crisis.
Yeah.
If people have died, know how many people have died, where have they died, yeah, under what circumstances did they die, so that even if we know that in public relations there are people who still do spinning, there are people who try to sugarcoat stuff, but in this day and age where we are in the information age,
Yeah.
so people are getting information from different sources and all that kind of stuff. So how do you make sure that your information is authentic? Is that you must look like you've been informed of what is going on. And you should talk from an informed position. And you should also connect with the victims for them to take you as an authentic leader. Otherwise, people will just doubt everything that you're saying.
Say, yeah.
Yes.
And they'll treat you as like any other person.
Yes.
I want us to move forward on this conversation and discuss corporate communication crisis.
Yes.
And this is been phenomenal in our country.
Yes.
And sometimes we even seen that it's been escalated. A small issue, like you said, start small, it's not being responded to.
Yes.
Then escalated to social media that even the CEO
Yes.
is now being tagged.
Yes.
And told, I asked for this and this to be done.
Yes.
This is not done.
Yes.
And I've had instances where CEOs give their numbers and
Yes.
say, if that is not done, call me with this number,
Yes.
WhatsApp me.
Yes.
I'll make sure I get back to you.
Yes.
Why must it get there?
I think one thing is that there's what we call organizational communication, and it goes in terms of hierarchy and in terms of that structure. So it means that when the CEO is speaking, he's the spokesperson of the organization.
Yeah.
And whatever he says, it mirrors or it reflects the embodiment of that organization. So whenever there is like what I call broken telephone,
Okay.
yes, that the information did not flow as expected, it was not structured as expected, it means that organizational communication structure has a problem. Okay?
Okay.
And that means that, as I said, during a crisis, you must form a team. The first thing you do is form a crisis team
Yeah.
that is going to handle that particular
so this
crisis.
team is different from the normal communication
Yes.
team. Okay.
No, the communication is also part of it.
Team, yeah.
But for instance, you have somebody from the CEO's office. You have somebody, let's say if it is an issue that has financial implication, you have somebody from the finance team. You have somebody from HR. All that is part of organizational communication that people don't know about.
Oh.
Sometimes people think that it is only that they think that the communication team should do miracle. That whenever there's a crisis, it's your problem as a communication department. No. People should work as a team. So there's a crisis, for instance, there are layoffs that sometimes happen. Yeah? And you realize that the communication department is told, write a statement. Okay? You cannot write a statement in a vacuum.
In an HR terms,
Yes.
which you don't even know.
That you don't know. First of all, you must understand what is going on. And that's where effective communication comes in. You effectively communicate when you understand what you're communicating. You're not just sending an amorphous statement to the public, just saying probably we're doing redundancy and that is all. We'll be laying off people and that is all. Maybe this number of people will be laid off. There must be somewhat a justification as to why these layoffs are being done. And especially for companies that are listed.
Yeah.
Listed companies sit at a very precarious position because whatever they communicate might affect their share price. So no wonder you must come up with a team and communicate effectively in terms of information that is coming internally. So whatever you're taking externally is something that can be verified, number one, is factual, and it's communicated with conciseness. There is no ambiguity. Okay. And sometimes, the reason, sometimes people communicate with ambiguity and then it boomerangs on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's turn this down now and discuss interesting case studies case experiences that I've seen.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, they should have not gotten here. The Ethiopian airline case.
Yes.
Where there's a lady was flying from UK to Nairobi.
Yes.
And she used Ethiopian Airlines.
Yes.
And she was being ejected out of the airline, and one of our journalists, Larry Madoho, recorded
Yes. The situation.
the
yeah.
situation.
Yes.
But then, after Larry posting that on his social media,
Yes.
is it social media?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, after Larry Mado posting on it,
Social media. Yes.
You know, as people from the lake, this
Yes.
thing is not.
You've eaten a lot of fish.
Yeah. So now,
Yeah.
Larry posts this, and then Ethiopian Airlines respond
Yes.
formally.
Yes.
And said nothing like that happened.
Yes.
Larry is lying.
I must say that was the beginning of Ethiopian Airlines digging its own grave in terms of its brand reputation. A situation like that was recorded and was put on a social media platform like X, and it's been posted by a reputable journalist, for that matter.
Yeah.
You know, a journalist who's working with CNN. That CNN is a serious news channel. So you do not assume that somebody could make it up, you know,
Yeah.
and fabricate it.
Yeah.
And you're in a serious airline like Ethiopian Airlines. I think that was the most grievous mistake that the Ethiopian Airline did. What they should have done is that they should have acknowledged that there was a problem, yes,
Yeah.
that was being raised, and probably acknowledging is part of also resolving a crisis.
Yeah.
Acknowledging that probably the way this issue was handled
Was not
was not right,
Yeah.
and find a way of compensating the customer, because this is where we say that the customer is always right and the customer is king.
I don't think the thing is.
Yeah?
Let me cut it short there.
Yes.
Because in most cases, people who are entrepreneurs don't always want to agree with that line.
Yes.
But it's true. I agree with you.
Yes, the customer is always right. Yeah, in that aspect.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
any aspect anyway, in terms of, because at the end of the day, it's better to maintain a customer than get a new one.
Yeah.
And that's why people say that a customer is always right in any situation. So they would have acknowledged the situation, and they would have acknowledged that there was a problem and see how they can resolve it.
Yeah.
I think that would have calmed things down. But denying and then, you know, trying to subject it to some falsification that existed in the air and there was none,
Yeah.
really boomeranged on the brand itself.
Yeah, and also Larry took it so personal again, because also I don't know how this thing turns now in the digital era. Larry took it personal and went and met the lady.
Yes.
And
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, and Larry said, Ethiopian Airlines said, I was lying.
Yes.
So she recorded the lady confirming
Yes.
that he was saying the truth.
Yes.
So you see, that still looked so bad on
And
this reputable airline.
Yes, and I think they didn't respond still. They went quiet because they think they're big. And let me tell you, a small hole on a ship always sinks the ship.
Yeah.
And sometimes we might think that, and that happens with big brands, you know. Big brands always think that, you know, they're above everyone, they're above even their customers, you know. And so anything that is affecting them externally, probably they brush it off. And one day, some of these things come to bite you, because people might start shunning away your airline, yeah, because of how you've been handling the situation. And it doesn't have to happen today. It might just happen in a small way over a long period of time. And when you look at your bottom line, the bottom line of your balance sheet, then you start realizing that, oh, there's something impacting my business.
The business.
Yes.
I mean, if you also look at that in another perspective, technology is also here with us.
Yes.
You understand?
Yeah.
And while it's just a small thing, you want to rub it off.
Yes.
But technology does not forget. People say internet does not forget.
Yeah, we have digital footprint on the internet. The internet doesn't forget. you
Yeah.
know? And that's why I told you that if, for instance, in such a situation, I'm looking for an airline to travel with. And probably you're the best airline that is in the market. Of course, Ethiopian Airlines is one of the best airlines in the market. But again, your reputation is based on how you handle your customers. So if you're going to handle that customer in that manner, how am I sure that I will also survive? And the situation was a bit complicated because there was a government official that was allegedly put on that plane and replaced the customer, which was a bit unfortunate. And you see, government,
the private sector,
a citizen, and you have a journalist. Man, that is a recipe for chaos. You're going to be butchered.
Repeat that again. Repeat that again.
Yeah.
You've said
when there is a situation where there's government, there's a citizen, and there's a journalist. And in this case, the citizen is a victim.
Yeah.
Then it's a recipe for chaos. You're going to be butchered. You're going to be butchered
if you don't have effective communication.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's have that clear.
Yes.
Because I see there's a conflict. There's always conflict of interest. But I don't think journalists will want to report something wrong.
Yes.
When it is meant to be in the right way.
Yes.
Yeah. And now that begs the question.
Yes.
What's the thin line between journalism and communication? Because people are even telling the Kenyan government that they have hired, a lot of journalists to manage their communications and PR. So what's this thin line? And do you think government should now begin hiring communication professionals?
Communication is the practice.
Yeah.
Journalism is the overall discipline. Anybody who's gone to school will know that when you go to any institution of higher learning, you're taking up journalism as a discipline, and then you specialize. So under journalism, that is where we now have print journalists, we have electronic journalism, we have data journalism, we have public relations and marketing today. So it is the mother discipline, but the communication itself is a practice. So journalists are practicing communication. PR is practicing communication. Marketing communication. We are all practicing communication. But journalism itself is the overall discipline.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the thin line.
That is the thin line.
So what do you think government should do?
Of course, there's been a very controversial perspective in terms of this aspect of employing journalists to become communication experts. And the problem usually is they do not have certain competencies that PR people have.
Yeah.
That is the difference. We could do everything, all of us. We can do production, The only difference is that we cannot be on set, but we can produce. But our discipline, because of our discipline and competency, we have certain objectives to achieve as PR people. One is we help in terms of influencing attitudes and behaviors. So what we communicate will influence how you think about a product, about a service, about an individual, which of course boils down to perception.
Yeah.
And behaviors, how you behave towards a certain brand. And that is where now the difference comes in terms of how we apply our competencies. And that's why sometimes people say the old PR was all about we spin, but that has changed over time. That was used in, I think, in medieval times and late when now we are having progressive change into communication. Now we have, when there was change in terms of capitalism, socialism, all these ideologies that were coming into existence, has changed how we practice PR today and comms. Yeah.
I think that's still a broad conversation. I think we can pick this on the next podcast we're gonna have.
Yes.
Because I see a comms person as someone who look at the big picture of everything.
Yes.
In most events that I've actually done.
Yes.
I know we are always there's photographers, there's influencers, there's journalists.
Yes.
But the comms person takes charge of everyone who is there.
Yes.
So if you're an influencer, you make sure that you have a particular content for influencing.
Of course.
And if you're a photographer, you get content for media. If you're a journalist, you get content for feature.
Yes.
So I literally agree with you. But still, you realize that in the end, journalists also feel they want to be heard. They want to be seen that they know what communication is. And that's what most organizations do. They hire you from your journalist experience.
But you see, what what differentiates us is usually how we apply our competencies and circumstances, especially when during crisis. We saw when Hussein had the issue with Morara, and he went on TV to, he lost his cool, and he was there, reprimanding the journalist. And I told you, while there is government, there's a citizen, and there's a journalist, the citizen will always win. Because if you do not handle that situation in a proper manner, the public confidence will be lost. And exactly what happened during that interview. And I think if Hussein, calmed himself, applied his emotional intelligence tools, and responded accordingly, they would not have seen such a debacle that was on TV.
For those people who don't know,
yes,
what did Hussein do to Morara on the news?
Okay, what happened precisely was that Morara was being interviewed. As people know, Kibaso Morara has been trying to audit government projects.
Yeah.
And of course, the reception has not been good.
From the government side.
From a government side. And then he's being seen like this public hero who is trying to set accountability in government, even though from an external perspective.
Yeah.
But then, how this situation was handled was that when Morara said that the president called him, and Hussein was like, okay, I do not remember. He was trying to spin it. He was trying to do his job. Yeah. Fine, well and good. But I think when you're handling your job, you must also realize that you must also understand your environment. And I think this is where the difference comes in when you're a communication expert. You must read the mood of the country. Mm. That is where emotional intelligence applies.
Yeah.
You must read who you're trying to fight. Yeah? Mm-hmm. You're fighting somebody who's grown his following on social media in a big way. So already he's an influencer.
Yeah.
Yeah? So how do you change his influence? There's what we say in communication when you're doing your stakeholder mapping. The model is about somebody who has high power. You look at the influencer or the stakeholder you're dealing with. Do they have high power, high interest? Or do they have low power, high interest? Or low power, low interest? So who is this individual that you're dealing with at that particular time? And if you do not apply that model properly to understand the kind of person you're dealing with, you're going to lose. Because at the end of the day, the public is with the small guy who's trying to fight. Who is big at this particular point? It's government.
It's government.
Because they have the machinery and they have the everything.
I also felt that Hussein did not articulate what was the issue down there. The issue was not the phone call. The issue was what was Morara saying. Was it true or was it false? It was not about the phone call. The issue was about the government audited projects that he was auditing.
I think he appreciated it, but he became emotional about it. What he should have done is that he should have acknowledged that, yes, there's this problem. Yes, Morara has gone out to do his civic duty,
Civic duty is the new work of Salamiana.
Yes, yeah. He's done his civic duty. The guy is doing whatever he's doing. However, as a government, we've taken recognition of what is happening. And even us, as a government, some of these projects, we are launching them, or we're also auditing them, They're in different phases. Some are in different phases. He could have given a more palatable answer, that the public could have consumed, but he decided to be emotional about it. And I think
people public don't know how to deal with
emotions. Always be, during a crisis, always be objective. Always be objective. Like in journalism, we say facts are stubborn. Always be objective. And I think what Hussein should have come to that interview to do was say, some of these projects, these are the status. And I think doing a phone call was even a disservice. Yeah?
Should have showed up.
He should have showed up for the interview with facts and said, this project is at this state, this project is at this state, Nobody would have refuted that because we know that regimes have changed, certain projects have stalled, and it is okay. It is okay. What the government is trying to do right now, this is the plan of the government. communicate the plan of the government in a more effective manner.
Yeah.
Then people will be like, okay, then that is a sober response. Rather than fighting the small person on television. You lose.
I think our time is so much gone, but I have like 2 more questions that I think we have not touched on. There's a moment you're talking about that a brand should not play politics during crisis communication.
Yes.
Why?
Because politics is like a pig playing in the mud. That's what I always say. And if a pig is playing in the mud and you follow it in the mud, you'll get dirty. So avoid being in the game completely, where the pig is involved in the mud. And I think that is where corporates usually do the biggest mistake. Sometimes I've seen people hijacking news. So because they want a trend.
Yeah, they want to be part of the news.
Yeah, so they hijack the news because you want the brand to trend. I think in this day of digital era, you need to be cautious enough in terms of what you're getting involved in. If there's no reward you're going to give as a brand to what you're trying to do, then avoid it completely. If it is not benefiting your brand in any way, please avoid being in politics or anything that involves politics for your brand. Unless you are influencing a policy, then it is okay to be in that political state.
Actually, when you're influencing a political policy.
Yes.
Yeah. And also talking about authenticity during crisis, during communication crisis.
Yes.
We've had a case where during the Gen Z protest, one of the CEO of one of big telcos went on social media, recorded himself on a video, and was saying the reason why there was internet cut was because the internet slow or network disruption during the protest was because of cable cut. And then I saw some high-notch, I don't know, it's a credible company which deals with the same kind of service, and they said there was nothing like that.
Yes.
So how then do you be authentic during crisis communication?
I think if it is not your monkey, don't get involved in it. That's what I'll say. If it is not your monkey, don't get involved in it because you'll slip down.
Yeah.
The second thing is that when you're communicating, please, what you're communicating needs to be factual. And I want to stick to the word factual because truths are relative. Whatever is truthful to you is not very truthful to me. Whatever is factual can be verified. And so when you're communicating, communicate with facts, that so that your brand does not get a backlash, And as I said, totally avoid things that are very political and steamy, They might injure your brand, And sometimes you might want to look like you're helping the situation, but probably you're sinking the ship. Yeah. So it is important and that's why I said, during a crisis, the team that you formed should be able to advise you on the veracity or the gravitas of the matter so that you do not, you know how to get involved in it. Sometimes also in crisis we say silence helps. Yeah. Silence helps in crisis, and it depends with the situation, the circumstance that is there. So don't just rush. Don't have, the adrenaline, to just hijack things and be part of them without, being considerate of the impact it is going to have on your brand.
Well said, well said. I mean, this conversation is so deep, it's so informative, and it's also so insightful.
Yes.
I'll wish to host you in another podcast conversation,
Anytime,
Alex,
anytime.
I mean, you spoke like someone who has done corporate and not just corporate communication. You've done communications for a while. How do people find you? And what are some of the brands you've handled, so that we also have you as a credible person?
Of course, I would say that I have a track record. I've worked with a number of brands, whether it is corporate, whether it's NGO, whether it's government agencies, and that has given me an opportunity, to gain the experience. Let me just mention that when I started my career, I was a journalist. I worked for Kenya Times. Oh. They used to call it Gazeti ya Baba. That is where I started.
Which Baba?
Mo himself.
Okay.
And then I moved to work for CIO East Africa as a pioneer associate editor at that particular time. And I've seen CIO grow today to be a regional tech publication, you know. And then now I had an opportunity now to get into Jinadin, which was the alma mater of local agencies that we saw grow, you know. Right. A lot of competent and intellectuals, if I may say, in PR, you know, that are right now working for other agencies. Yeah. So I got to Jinadin. I started as a media executive, grew up there in different positions, handling various clients, and before I know it, I was I call it the Rolls Royce of PR. I was at Ogilvy, you know, as an account director, and then now I left and started my own thing as a consultant. I work for Alexander PR, and I've worked. It has opened other doors. Worked with great brands, MIT Legatam, you know. I've worked with Bayer Foundation. I've worked with...
in short, you're a big shot.
A big shot but I've had the privilege of applying my skills in a more competent manner for organizations that need it. Yeah. So I must say that it's been humbling, you know. It's been humbling to be in those positions.
Amma, you want to say it's... how do Kenyans say it's me God?
The God Maze.
I'm so excited to host you again. Yes. I think the next topic I want to have you is... I want us to discuss personalizing communication on brands.
Yes.
That's the next topic we're going to have to discuss with you when you come over again. Are you promising our viewers you're going to show up again?
Of course, I'll be here. I'll be here. Anytime you need me, I'm here. I'll be able to share information, because the more we share information, the more we create conversations like this.
Conversations that matter.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Alex, for coming over. That has been Alex Owiti, the founder of Alexander PR, and I'm looking forward to host him again. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, from us to you, bye.